Hello, everyone. I'm Scott Knipe, and thank you for tuning in to the latest edition of Real Combat Media Interviews. Today, we talk with the Iceman, John Scully. John has been on the rise in the boxing world of late. The astute trainer and analyst for the ESPN Classic Television Network sat down with Real Combat Media's Chris Cercola. He spoke about his childhood, his standout amateur career. He spoke about the highlights of his professional career, and so much more. Real Combat Media would like to give a very special thanks to the Iceman John Scully for taking the time to talk with us about his prestigious boxing career.
All right, where were you born?
Actually, Harper Hospital, Harper, Connecticut.
And what kind of neighborhood did you live in?
Middle class, probably. It was racially diverse, really racially diverse. Just typical, I guess.
And what kind of home life do you have?
I have one brother, and my mother and father were divorced when I was young, but my father lived close by, and I was with him every day, and I stayed with him on the weekends, but and then never a day went by that I didn't see him, so it was almost like they were still together. Just really basic, nothing extraordinary at all.
What kind of kid were you?
I don't know. I was into sports, like me and my friends. I mean, we played football in the park by my house probably every day for 7 years. Rain, winter, spring, summer, fall, whatever. I mean, storms. That was that thing. I loved Lynn Swann. I was a big fan of Lynn Swann and the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's what we did. We played football every day. That was like I was in high school. I wasn't into. I didn't drink. I didn't do drugs. I never went to one party in my whole entire high school career. Never went to one dance. I didn't even know we had dances. I honestly didn't know. It's kind of funny now. I look at my friends, people I graduated with. I look at their Facebook page and they have the old pictures of parties and trips the kids in high school went on, and I never even knew. I had never had an idea, because I was just boxing and playing football. That was what I did, and I even if I knew about him, I probably wouldn't have went anyway. Because I wasn't that type of kid like to hang out and drink and party, and that just was never my thing at all. The guys I hung out with, we just played electronic football, and we watched fights, and that was it.
So what'd you do for ladies then, if you never went out?
I actually had a girlfriend. I was quiet, but I had a girlfriend in high school, and actually, it's funny. My wife now, her and I actually used to share a locker in high school. Yes. Well, I actually met her in 6th grade. She was my first girlfriend, so to speak. As much of a girlfriend as she could be in 6th grade, yeah. So, I had a girlfriend in high school. I had girls, but I met them my own way. I never went to parties. I've never been to a party in my life. Never.
You never had a sip of alcohol, I read it.
No, never. No.
That's cool, man. That's cool.
It was funny. I was thinking about tickets as a kid. Windsor High School kid right now who's on my Facebook page, and he used to box at the gym a little bit. And I was actually just talking to him yesterday. We were going back and forth on his Facebook wall, and I was talking to him about that type of stuff. And so I was telling him the story about how when I was a kid, I read about Muhammad Ali not doing drugs and not doing alcohol, not drinking alcohol, and it stuck with me. I just figured if it was good enough for Ali, it must be good enough for me, and that just stayed with me. And the thing was, I was at the pool today at the Hard Rock, and I was watching the waitresses by the pool, and I was watching these guys in the water, and one of them wanted a beer, and they called the waitress over. But the way they call her over, it's kind of like they didn't, they don't. Some guys say they don't respect the waitress, the doorman. You know what I mean? Those are just the people that are there to work for them, kind of thing. And reading Ali's book, I read where even when he was going to court for the trial in the late '60s for draft evasion. They said, and this was a third party speaking, saying that it was amazing because every day when he would come into court, Ali would walk over to all the guards and the cops, and he would shake their hands, and nobody noticed it. But this one reporter was there, and he said he just thought it was extraordinary that Ali would take the time. And then another lady said she noticed they were at a big event at the Waldorf Astoria in New York City, and all the celebrities were there, and they said out of all the big celebrities, and they named like some huge stars, and they said out of all the celebrities, Ali was the only one that went over and shook the hands of all the maitre d', the waiter, the doorman, and that always kind of stuck with me. Just little things like that about Ali stuck with me as far as how to treat people, and despite the fact that he was going through what he was going through, but he white, black, he always shook their hands and acknowledged them. I always liked that about Ali.
Is there anyone cooler than Ali ever?
No, I'd have to say no. Nah.
I don't think so.
Nah, not at all.
No. Who got you interested in boxing to begin with?
My father. My father was a big boxing fan. He still is to this day. He actually had the books. He had when I used to stay with him on the weekend, he had all the autobiographies of mainly the three specific ones: Willie Pep, Sugar Ray Robinson, and Muhammad Ali. He had his autobiographies, and every weekend when I'd go to stay with my father, I'd read their autobiographies over and over and over. So that's why all those little details stuck with me from each guy.
Yeah, that's cool. You met Willie Pep, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, he was actually the first famous boxer I ever met. When I was 15, and I was actually a pallbearer at his funeral in 2008.
Yeah. What did he say to you the first time you met him?
When we first met, he I was just like any other kid. He was like, oh, hey, he signed a picture for me, and it was nothing extraordinary. But as I started boxing and getting into it, and getting my name out there, he like, I'll give you an example. One time I was telling him, I said, hey, we got the show, we're fighting at the Sim Center, and I was naming all the people that were on the show. I was trying to sell them on the show, and he goes, hey, listen. So he interrupted me, and he said, listen, I'm coming to see you. I don't care about the other guys. I'm coming to see you. And he came to I just thought that was a trip. And recently, it's kind of funny. Recently, Billy Pep, his son, he messaged me on Facebook, and he told me, he said, I don't know if you know this or not, but when you were a kid, just turning pro, Willie told me, he said, watch that kid. That kid's going to be good. You got to keep an eye on that kid. So, it's just kind of weird to me that he even, I'm just honored that a guy like that even knew who I was. And next thing I know, I'm carrying his casket.
That's amazing.
Yeah, sure is.
It's like Bill Clinton shook the hand of JFK when he was a teenager. That's
right. Oh, I love that kind of stuff. I love that. Yeah. It's funny you mention that because I saw that I remember when I read that, and I thought that was real. But I think there's a picture of it, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there's proof.
And I just thought that, was a trip. I like stuff like that.
Yeah, me too. Man. And let me see. Hold on one sec. Now, how old were you when you first walked into a boxing gym?
My first day in an official gym, I was 14. It was actually this month. This is my 30th anniversary, March of '82. Was my first day. But I actually started boxing in '80. I organized a boxing league in my neighborhood, and I had a bunch of the kids from town, and we boxed each other. And I actually called it the WBC. It was the Windsor Boxing Council. And we had a little, like a aluminum foil belt, and I never forget. I still have the record of it. I was 9-0, and I still have the names of everybody I boxed. And we boxed. I mean, one guy we boxed on my back porch. We boxed in my friend's basement. We boxed in the park, and we boxed in somebody's yard. And we had our own little league going.
Did anyone ever call the cops on you?
Nah. It was like a lot of kids did that back then. It was kind of like I actually got the idea from another kid that lived up the street from me, Billy Gilmore. But Billy was older than me, so I couldn't really expect to hang with his friends. So I started my own thing and got some of the other kids my age and size involved.
Born organizer. Nice.
Yeah.
Were you good right away when you first went to the gym?
You know what? I actually write about it in my book, and it's just for, I loved Ali, and I imitated Ali, and I thought everybody boxed like Ali. And the funny thing is, the first day in the gym, the coach put me in, and I was 14 years old, and I boxed with a 17-year-old kid. And I remember he had a little bit of experience. He fought in the Golden Gloves and whatever. Mm-hmm. And I got in there, and I just boxed like Ali. I imitated Ali, and I remember he couldn't hit me. He just couldn't touch me. And I didn't hit him a lot either, but he didn't hit me. And I never get after the fight, after we sparred, he said, "Hey, so, oh, man, how long you been boxing for?" And I said, "Wow, I don't know, 20 minutes, half hour." I just started. He thought that I had come over from another gym to get some sparring. He thought I was experienced, and it was literally my first day in the gym. From because of Ali and really the Rocky movies, watching Apollo Creed, I used to imitate Apollo Creed, and I was always kind of elusive right from the start. So I kind of had an advantage over some of the guys, that start at the same time. On their first day, that they don't really have that boxing mentality. But I had them, even though I never boxed before officially. I had the mentality. Mm-hmm.
I always liked Apollo Creed too, man. Apollo Creed made it look so cool, didn't he, Carl Weathers?
Oh, he was the best movie boxer ever, by far. Yeah, by far. That guy had. I actually, it's a funny thing, and you can go on YouTube and you can watch it. There's a YouTube video of one of my amateur fights in the Olympic trials in 1988, and at one point you see me throw a triple right hand. And I've had everybody that watches it, they mention it. They go, "Oh, that was a real nice triple right hand in the second round." I got that from Apollo Creed in the first Red Balboa fight. He did it. That's the honest truth. He did it if you watch the movie, he did it in the fight. It's the part where he starts talking. He goes, "Get your cameras ready. Get your cameras ready. Here it comes." And he threw a triple right hand, and that's where I got it from.
Yeah, I think I saw that movie like 1,500 times probably.
Right. So, you know the scene.
Yeah. And you're one of the best amateur boxers in Connecticut history. What was your record, like 57?
I was 57 and 13.
Yeah. You won the 87 Ohio State Fair Games. Was that the first championship or first tournament you won?
No, I won my first tournament was in 83, but the Ohio State Fair was my first big national level event. You have your local, your regional, and all that. But yeah, that was my first, notable tournament victory that people would, the Ohio State Fair was a huge tournament. I mean, Sugar Ray Leonard, Tyson, Tommy Hearns, they all fought there.
Mm-hmm. And how did it feel when you first won that?
That was one of the greatest moments of my life to this day. I mean, that was one of the happiest days. Like winning that tournament was just. I could have quit boxing that day, and I would have been satisfied.
Wow. Yeah. You won the '87 National PAL in Jacksonville too. How did you feel when you won that one?
That was the same thing. The PAL was one of the first tournaments I ever heard about when I turned amateur, and the thing was, I fought this guy, Curtis Mingo, who had beaten me the year before, and he was really cocky, and he was good, but he had beaten me, and I remember in the fight, he hurt me with a left hook to the body in the previous fight, and it always stayed with me, and I knocked him out in the finals in the PAL in '87. So that was not. It would have been great to win it, but to win it and knock him out in the process was just it was very, very, very special.
Yeah. You won the '88 Eastern U.S. Olympic Trials in North Carolina. You defeated Darren Allen then.
Right. Now that was the biggest for me. Darren Allen was a superstar in the amateurs. He had beaten Henry Maskey to win he was the world champion in '86, and he won the title by beating Henry Maskey. I mean, he beat Frank Tate. I mean, he beat William Guthrie. He beat all the big names. He was the hot. He was the superstar at that weight class, and I always wanted to fight him. And when I got to the tournament and I saw him there, we were out by the pool. And I saw him working out by the pool, loosening up at the hotel. And as soon as I saw him, I knew we were gonna meet in the finals. I knew it, and we did. And so I was very very hyped up, very excited for that fight. That was probably the crowning moment of my pro and amateur career. Was that day.
Yeah. Wow. And you won the '87 Western Mass Golden Gloves. Is that a big tournament? I never did hear.
Well, it's very notable in our area because, I mean, I won it in 85, 86, 87, and 88. I won it 4 times. And that, you know, that's the tournament. I mean, everybody in New England, parts of New York and Connecticut, that's the Golden Glove. Like, that's what you train for all year long, so you can fight in that tournament. And that's the first tournament I had ever heard about when I started boxing, was the Golden Gloves. So I just wanted to win it once, because the winners get a blue jacket with gold lettering on the back. And I wanted that jacket. That was the symbol. That was a championship belt to me, that jacket. And I just wanted it. And I won it 4 times, and I still have all the jackets in my trophy room.
Wow, man. And the tournament where you won the 88 Eastern U.S. Olympic Trials, is that the same one that you beat Darren Allen in? Was that the one?
Yeah, well, no, that is the one. Yeah, that's where I beat Darren. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool, man. So how did you feel when you won that award?
The outstanding boxer, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh no, that was just, I mean, that was just icing on the cake, because there were some top fighters in that tournament who could have won. I mean, Michael Bent, future heavyweight champion, he was in there. He could have won it. He could have won that outstanding boxer award. So that was just icing on the cake. But like I say, beating Darren was just an amazing. For me, that was like somebody right now beating Mayweather. That's how comparable it was to me.
Yeah, that's cool that you won the whole award for outstanding boxer too. You know.
Yeah, well, I think cool, you know, a part of it had to do with the fact that I beat him, because, like I say, he was the man. And it's funny, we're friends now on Facebook, and we talk, and it's funny because, you know, I must have exuded that attitude, because he wrote on his Facebook wall, he was kind of reminiscing about the old days, and he put my picture up, and he said, John Scully, he said, I used to hate this guy. He was a rival of mine, but now we're good friends. And he said, and when we fought in 1988, it was as though he would rather die than lose to me. And that was him writing that. I think, you know, that was his impression, and he was right. Like, that's literally how I felt. Like, nothing in life meant more to me than beating him that day, and I did.
That would be the coolest thing to have on the first page of your book. Wouldn't that be cool?
Oh, yeah.
Did you have it in your book, or you wrote your book before you saw that?
Oh no, well, my book is not even done yet. I'm planning on having it done by June, so
there you go.
Yeah, I can include that in the chapter where I talk about it.
Yeah. And how'd you feel when you found out that you made the list of all-time boxing team with Tyson and?
Oh, with the Golden Gloves and Holyoke. Yeah, that was like I say, that was surreal, just because, you know, as an amateur coming up, that's all I heard about was the Golden Gloves, Golden Gloves and Holyoke. Everything. I mean, it was such a dynasty there. I mean, you fought there. I mean, to this day, I can still smell the arena just smelled like hot dogs and popcorn, and I can smell it right now in my nose. And yeah, to be on that, you know, to be the all-time middleweight is just, you know, it's surreal. It's like it's kind of weird to me.
That's cool, man. Really. And what kind of relationship would you have with Mike at the time? Did you have any kind of relationship with Mike Tyson?
Was that Tyson?
Yeah.
No, actually, I didn't know. I was there when he was there. I didn't know him. I actually met him. When did I meet him? I met him in '89, you know, briefly. Oh, okay. But I actually talked to him for quite a while in '96 when he was training for Bruce Seldon fight, and we were talking for quite a while. And he could see that I obviously knew what I was talking about as far as old-time fighters and things. And he asked me, he goes, what's your name again? And I said, oh, John Scully. And he goes, oh, man, I'm sorry. I didn't recognize you. Oh, how you doing? And he said he watched me fight, and it was just crazy. Like, I was just amazed that he even knew my name. You know, so he was, you know, I can't say I'm good friends with Mike or anything like that, but he knows me. I mean, he obviously knows me. And actually, after that, I had given him, I photocopied a whole bunch of old amateur articles for him that he was in, and one of the friends of his from his amateur days, and he was really, really appreciative of it. So, you know, I think, you know, I'm not his best friend or anything, but I know him, and I always thought he was, from my interactions with him, I really like him. He's a really good guy.
Yeah. What do you remember about your amateur fight with Joey DeGrandis? I talked to Joey the other day. He told me to ask you about that.
Oh, wow. What, did you get it?
I watched it on YouTube.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, that was a trip, and that was amazing. It wasn't just that. I mean, it was before that. It was in the hallway before the fight. There was a lot of drama, and then for months and months, actually years after the fight, we had quite a long history. Actually, him and I didn't even become friends until about 2 years ago. You know, we started talking, and you know, we saw each other somewhere. Like people would see us at fights together, and they years later, and they would be like, "Oh man, Joey's over there." Like they literally thought a real fight was going to break out with us. But you know, it was. I liked it. I mean, it was like an Ali Frazier type of thing with him and I, and you know, I enjoyed it. It added a lot to the you know, the whole program.
how good was Joey? You were like,
real rough. Like he was a real rough. You know, he did good. I mean, he beat some good guys as a pro. He turned out to have a pretty solid pro career. You know, I just at the time we fought, he was. You know, he predicted he was going to knock me out and everything. It read in the newspaper and everything. But you know, at the time, I mean, I was pretty experienced, and you know, I was probably a little too much for him at the time.
what happened to start the brawl? He said
Well,
he whispered something.
it started a couple days before the game, the fight.
Yeah.
His friends, I mean, you know, he's from South Boston, D Street. You know, he's with a rough bunch of guys, and they were trying to intimidate me in the hotel and at the arena and everything. And him and I were actually alone in the bathroom before the fight. I walked in, and he was there, and we had a couple little words. And then what happened was, right before our fight, while the previous fight was going on, I walked up the stairwell, and I passed him as I walked out into the hallway outside the arena, and I whispered to him. I said, "It's showtime." And that was it. He got furious, and he came after me, and we had a little altercation in the hallway, and the police had to come and everything. So it was by the time we reached the ring, it was just like a firecracker that had been lit. They were just waiting for it to go off.
No. And what did you feel about your loss to Fabian Williams? Did you feel you lost that fight? Should have won that fight.
You know what? I lost a 3-2 split. I thought it was fair. I mean, I thought I lost. It was my first time at the National Golden Gloves, and when you fight in the national, it was my first time in the finals. And when you fight to win the National Golden Gloves, you have to fight 5 days in a row. And I mean, I had some really spectacular performances that week, and I think I was based on that, I was favored going into the fight with Fabian. But to be honest, I was just so tired. My body was just so broken down. By the time we reached that fight, I just didn't have it. And you know, the only reason it was as close as it was is because I dug down and I tried. But it's funny, Fabian and I are actually friends now. And just about probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, we were on the phone talking, and he told me, he said, during the fight, I switched up from southpaw to righty. And he goes, "Man," he goes, "you know, I never told you this before, but it's a good thing you didn't stay southpaw, because if you would have stayed southpaw, you would have beat me." He said he had huge trouble his whole career with southpaws, and but I didn't know that, and I kept switching to righty. So, you know, if I knew then what I know now, I would have stayed southpaw. But it was, you know, it was fair. It was close, but he beat me fair and square.
So what kind of person were you when you lost? Were you like, how'd you deal with that?
At that time, especially with the amateurs being the way it is, I mean, the Golden Gloves is one of the top 2 biggest tournaments in the country, maybe in the world. I mean, that's just such an elite tournament. To make it to the finals is you know, the odds are, you know, however many to 1, just huge odds for you know, you start out talking about the whole United States. There's 32 regions that the Golden Gloves are broken up into, and those 32 champions have to fight, you know, however many hundreds of guys they have to beat, and then they all go and meet at the Nationals, and then they single elimination until there's 2 left. So, you know, I didn't look at it like a loss so much as I looked at it like I was one of the two. I mean, I made it to the finals. So, and I recognized right away, being a boxing historian, I knew how important and significant being a finalist was. So I wasn't devastated because I knew I had accomplished something.
Yeah. How about the Keith Providence loss? Did you take that one?
Now that one, I won that fight. That one I don't like. I won that fight. Everybody knows I won that fight. That fight was on ESPN. I mean, even the announcers. I mean, I won that fight. And for whatever, I have my suspicions as to why I didn't get it. To do with the team coach from the team that he fought for was a guy who personally didn't like me, and he happened to be one of the Olympic coaches. He had a personal thing, and I don't know how much that played a role, but I definitely thought I won. The ESPN announcers thought I won.
I get that too. People hate me for no reason. You don't know why, right?
Yeah. Well, what's funny, the guy, Tom Coulter, he said I had a bad attitude. And the thing was, A, I had never met him in my life. I didn't have any idea who he was. And B, there's nobody at that, especially at that time, could ever say I had a bad attitude. I mean, I was so quiet in the amateurs. Nobody, I never even talked to guys. Like, I was very quiet. I was in awe of all the guys. So for him to say that just proved he had never met me, and he was just making up stuff because nobody knew what kind of attitude I had because I didn't say anything.
Yeah. It shocks me how many mentally ill people there are in the world.
There's more than a couple, yeah.
And what's your greatest memories of being an amateur? Did you have any international fights?
Yeah, I actually had two. One of my biggest memories is actually beating Otis Grant when he was number 2 in the world in his hometown in Montreal, Canada. That was huge. I mean, I took the fight on like 3 days' notice, and I knew who he was at the time. He had just been the runner-up at the Pan American Games a few months earlier, and he was number 2 in the world. And so that was a massive win. That was huge, and so I really enjoyed that. And then I fought another fight in Puerto Rico. I lost a 3-2 split to the number 5 guy in the world, Freddie Sanchez. But I got to travel, and I got the seasoning of fighting guys of that caliber. So win or lose, just being at that level helped me a great deal.
Yeah. And did your amateur career get you a real nice signing bonus?
Did it what?
Did it get you a nice signing bonus?
Yeah, for me at the time, yeah, I got a signing bonus, and I had a choice of signing with some different people as a pro. I was with Sugar Ray Leonard for a while, and I could have signed with Ray, but the only reason I didn't was because I just wanted to stay home. I wanted to stay in Connecticut, and Mac Buckley was the guy here. He had Marlon Starling and Troy Wortham, and he was the big guy in our area, and he he had a plan for me, and it allowed me to stay home, and so I took it.
Yeah, that's cool. How'd you feel the first time you're talking to Sugar Ray Leonard? Is that the first time you met him?
The first time I met Ray, I was in the dressing room at his gym, and he came in and introduced himself, and I specifically remember thinking to myself, is this really him? Or it was almost like I was thinking they brought a guy that looked like him just to amuse me, And I was, man, like, this is a guy I idolized. And I mean, I remember when he fought Tommy Hearns, and I walked around the neighborhood that night just looking up at the sky, and I was like, man, like, I wonder what's going on in Las Vegas right now. Like, I can't believe tonight there's only going to be one welterweight champion after this fight. And and people idolize Sugar Ray, and they would love to meet him, and they couldn't because he was standing there with me in the dressing room. And, I just thought that was the greatest thing. But it's funny now, my whole boxing career has been surreal to me because, like, at that time I met him, and it was just so bizarre to me that I knew that I was in the room with this guy. And now, it's a thing where, he sends me emails, and, we're in touch with each other now. And it's just a crazy life I've been allowed to lead.
Yeah, that is amazing. You turned pro on, do you remember the date you turned pro against and against who and what the result was?
Oh, yeah, September 16, 1988, at the Harvard Civic Center against Paulino Falcone. And I stopped him in the first round. I actually broke his rib.
Well, how did it feel to get that first win under your belt?
That was, I needed to just, it wasn't, like the amateur fights I fought were bigger in terms of competition and everything like that, but the pros, I always had such great respect for the pros that, just to be in the ring without the shirt on and have those fight gloves on, and it's just there's a different vibe to the pros than there is to the amateurs, and it was definitely like starting over. It was definitely like being in a whole new stratosphere, and it was different. It was a climb. I didn't transition as well as I would have wanted to, because I had such great respect for the pros that I put the game probably on a little bit higher of a pedestal than I should have. Instead of just relaxing and being myself, I just looked at it like pros. I'm thinking Hagler, Leonard, Hearns, Ali, Holmes. I mean, that's pro to me. So everybody I fought as a pro, it was just a big deal just to even be in the ring with them, because it indicated that I was a professional.
Mm-hmm. Were you like psyched up and a little nervous going into the ring?
Oh yeah, it's crazy when I look back on it now, because I was nervous to fight guys who early on, they didn't have half the ability and talent of the guys that I was beating in the amateurs. But just the fact that they were professionals, to me, kind of messed me up. Just the fact that they were professional boxers fighting for money, as opposed to trophies, it made me think of them, in a different light. Somehow they seemed tougher and rougher to me, which in reality they probably weren't. But that's how I thought of it, and it took some getting used to.
You won your first 13 fights and 12 by knockout, and then you fought the way more experienced Brett Lally. Why'd you fight Brett Lally with so little experience?
You know what? I have no idea. I don't know what my manager was thinking. Really, because I had only been, it's not just that he had that experience over me, but if you look at the record, I had only been a pro 9 months. I just turned pro the previous September, and we fought in July, the beginning of July. So I was literally a pro for 9 months. To fight, to turn pro, and then 9 months later be the main event on ESPN against a guy like that with a record like that is very unusual. I don't know what my manager at the time, Mac Buckley, I don't really know what the hurry was, because physically, I should have beat Brett Lally. Really, I realize that now. I should have beat him. I was more talented. I was a little bit bigger. If I would have fought my fight, I would have. But just the lights and the Atlantic City and the casino. I had never been in a casino before. And all of a sudden, there I am. I'm in a casino getting ready to fight. My picture's on a poster all over the casino. And ESPN is there. And Al Bernstein is there. And really, all due credit to Brett. He beat me fair and square, but the whole thing combined was just probably too much for me at the time. I respected the pro game so much that it kind of messed me up.
Yeah, you were overwhelmed, man.
yeah. Looking back, I can see that I was. It was like just a couple years earlier. I was the guy in front of the TV watching the HBO fights, just in awe of Donald Curry and Lil McCrory and all these guys, and now here I am on ESPN. It's almost like I didn't know I belonged. I didn't think I belonged. It was almost like being dropped off in the middle of a movie and you don't know how to act.
Yeah.
And that's what it was like. All right, bad. No time to think. You gotta. Robert De Niro's over there. You gotta trade lines with him. And I wasn't. I always say, if I would have fought most of the guys I lost to, if I would have fought them at a different time in my career, I would have beat them. Brett Lally, he was a very tough fighter, don't get me wrong, but when I was later on in my career, I don't think he would have had a chance in the world to beat me. But he definitely caught me at the right time.
Yeah, how'd you feel after losing that fight?
I was confused. I was like, man, maybe I don't belong in this game. Maybe it's too much for me. I knew that I had to change something. It was mostly my way of thinking. I needed to be stronger mentally and more focused. But again, I just, throughout my whole career, I mean, I was always like, even when I was fighting for the title, I just looked at it like, boxing was such a big thing, and I was always kind of maybe subconsciously not sure if I belonged because these are guys, like when I fought Michael Nunn and guys like that. I mean, I used to watch these guys on TV, and I knew who they were way before they knew who I was, and so I think it kind of messed with my head a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, even as you did get older.
Yeah, so not as bad, but just subconsciously, it's just a weird thing because I've always been a fan of boxing, and it's just kind of a trip. I'll give you an example. Like when I was in Las Vegas one time, 1989, and they called me. I'll never forget. I was in the room and I was watching TV, eating a cup of ice cream, and my manager called and he said, "Hey, listen," he said, "I'm over at Johnny Taco's. Mike McCallum's here. He needs some sparring. His sparring didn't show up. Come on over." I said, "All right, man." And I just got up. I put the ice cream down. I ran downstairs. I got into a cab and I went right over, just only because I just wanted to box Mike McCallum. It was just like, man, I get to box Mike McCallum. Like it never occurred to me that I could fight him one day, or we might be rivals one day in the same weight class. That never occurred to me. I just said, man, I get it. This is my opportunity to box with Mike McCallum, and that's how I looked at it. That's how I always looked at the game.
Yeah. And you came back and you picked up a couple of wins, and then you fought for your first title. It was a New England middleweight championship. Now I know it's a minuscule championship, but it's still pretty. You still won the championship. How did it feel winning your first championship?
Oh yeah, in Connecticut, in our area, the New England title was important because back then, they don't even know if they still have it, but back then, guys that I really looked up to, Kuda Leaks and Papa Figueroa and Sean Mannion and Robbie Sims even, they were New England champions, and it was a big deal then. So, and the kid I fought, he was kind of my rival in Hartford, Anthony Daly. I had beaten him in the amateurs, and so to fight him and for the New England title, that was, like, to me, as a fan of boxing, fighting for the New England title pretty much felt the same as when I fought for the world title. There wasn't that much difference to me. A title is a title, and in my own little world in New England, that is the world title. And so I treated that like a world title fight for sure.
Yeah, well, and tell me about your fight with Alfonso Bailey.
That's a huge win for me because, again, as a fan of boxing, when I was coming up in the amateurs, Alfonso was the #1 ranked light middleweight in the country, and he was very, very, very highly thought of. And as a pro, he had beaten Dwight Davison, who was #1 contender by the WBC for a long time. And I was actually kind of intimidated by Alfonso, to be honest with you. I was leery. I was very leery. Probably one of the fights I was the most leery going into of an opponent was that one. I really respected Bailey quite a bit, and I knew he was a good fighter. I knew he was very experienced, and I had to be really on top of my game. And as luck would have it, the way things turn out, that actually was probably one of my top 3 best performances as a pro. That's one of my favorite fights. I fought a good fight, and I beat him pretty convincingly.
Yeah. How about your split decision win over Billy Bridges? Someone told me that Billy Bridges hits real hard, but then I asked you on the Facebook a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
You said no.
Right, no, I didn't think so at all. I didn't feel any of his fight, like nothing. He was a very technical boxer. He was one of the maybe one of the top 2 or 3 technical boxers I've ever fought. But the thing was, to be honest with you, I was extremely sick going in that during the fight. I mean, there's no way I should have been allowed to even box that night. I guess I was losing weight, and when you lose weight, you know, to enough that makes you sick, you get what's called dry heaves, which I didn't even know what it was at the time, but you know, I was throwing up, but nothing was coming up, and that meant I was throwing up, but there was nothing in my body to come out. And that's what I went into that fight with. I was so sick that I actually, on the way to the ring, while we were on our way to the ring, there was a delay for a couple of minutes because a basketball game was on, and the game went into a little bit of overtime, so they had to hold us up for about 5 or 10 minutes. And while I was standing there in the hallway leading out to the arena, I actually almost, I don't know if you say fainted, but I kind of fainted, felt like I lost consciousness for a quick second, and I fell against the wall. You know, and I'm on my way to the ring. I got my gloves on, the cameras are right there in front of me. So I fought that whole fight, and I remember specifically telling my corner man, Johnny Duke, I told him, listen, Duke, keep that bucket ready right next to me, just in case I have to throw up between rounds. I want to throw up in the bucket. And so I went the first 3 or 4 rounds of that fight just trying not to get hit in the stomach because I didn't want to throw up all over the ring. And around the 5th or 6th round, I started loosening up, and you know, I said, man, I'm kind of in this fight, and I'm not getting hit that hard, and I loosened up, and I finished strong, and I ended up winning the fight, which under the circumstances is almost a miracle. Because and after the fight, I actually have a picture of all of us in the casino eating dinner, and I didn't eat anything. I was so sick, just sitting there at the dining room table. Just, I mean, you can just see my face. I just looked terrible. And so I, you know, split decision win over a 16-year-old guy. You know, it was a very great accomplishment, but. For me personally, I mean, that was a spectacular accomplishment just to fight as well as I did under the circumstances.
Yeah. And what happened with the Kevin Watts fight? How'd you lose that fight?
You know what? That was my last fight with Mac Buckley as my manager and trainer. I was just fed up. I went into that fight. I didn't care. I was just so sick of making weight, and I didn't want to fight 160 anymore. And I told Mac that I didn't want to fight 60, and he basically refused and said I had to stay at 160, and I didn't want to fight, and I just went to that fight just with no, you know, and it just sucks to look back on it because it was on TV. It was a big opportunity. He was like number 4 in the world at the time, and I basically just allowed him to beat me. I just didn't have any. I didn't want to fight at all, and that was my last fight with him. Literally, like the next day, I severed ties with him.
Okay, sounds like a jerk, huh?
Yeah, no, it was. Well, you know who Mac Buckley is, right?
Yeah. I don't know him by face, but I know him by name.
But I mean, you know what he did.
No, what did he do?
Well, no, he went about 10 years ago. If you Google it, you can find a million stories about it. But he actually went a little nuts. He says he has bipolar, and he took like 400,000 from his clients and took off with it. Just took off, and he left his family and grandson and everybody behind, and he was missing for a while. He actually was on America's Most Wanted. They had me on America's Most Wanted talking about him. That we thought he got abducted, and turns out he was on the run, and then he turned himself in, and just a lot of crazy stuff. And you know, I think he was bipolar when he was managing me, because we always thought something was a little crazy about him, because he used to do kind of unusual things, but we just figured it was just a quirky thing about him. But years later, it turns out he's bipolar.
Oh, that's crazy. My wife was always depressed, and she's bipolar. She never had a manic episode, but when they go manic, they go crazy. She actually divorced me. It's crazy.
Really? Yeah, well, that's what he just took off. Like he had a law practice, he had a farm, he had a wife, like 6 kids, a grandson, everything. I don't know where he thought he was going. You know, he's going to start a new life somewhere. I mean, and he took off, and then it was the craziest thing. And then just all of a sudden, one day, he just showed up.
I forgot what question I asked you last. I think it was about the Kevin Watts fight. Was that the last fight that you had with Buckley?
Yeah, yep.
Okay,
Yeah, we broke up actually the next day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Alright. Let me see. Let me just get this together now. Heck, I can't even understand my own stuff here.
Yeah.
Okay, after that, you broke up with him, you broke up with Buckley. What happened with that? No one ever heard from him again?
No, I just decided to see. I wanted to fight 168. That was a relatively new division at the time. It just came into being, I think, in 87 or 88. But I just couldn't make 160. I hadn't been a 160 ever. Even in the amateurs, I used to have trouble making 165. And he just refused. He just wanted me to stay at 160. And I just kept telling him, like I lost to Lally and I lost to Watts. I just don't feel it. I can't make it. I'm not happy. And even after that fight with Watts, he still wanted me to fight 168. 160. He actually wanted me to go fight Harold Graham over in England, which would have been an amazingly tough fight. So I realized I couldn't make 160 anymore, so I just stopped calling him, and people said I wouldn't be able to get out of the contract, but I got a lawyer, and he sent back a letter, and we just that was it. It was just a clean break.
Mm-hmm. And your next fight was against Melvin Wynn. You won the WBF Intercontinental Super Middleweight Championship. How'd that feel, winning that title?
Really good. I knew it wasn't like a world title or anything, but Melvin was a very good fighter. He was a very tough, cagey fighter. And the main thing was I trained. It was the first time as a pro I could say I really trained hard and properly for a fight. And I went into it, and it was a tough fight for about 8 rounds. It was a really close fight, I thought. And then, but my conditioning and my desire kicked in, and the last 4 rounds I took over and won the fight.
Uh-huh. And then you fought Tim Little for the USBA Super Middleweight title. What happened in that fight? What do you remember that?
Similar to the 160, I had begun to outgrow the weight class, and it was a crazy thing. I couldn't hold during training. I couldn't get below around 171. I just couldn't do it. No matter what I tried. But the main thing was, at the time, I didn't know anything about nutrition. And if you know anything about nutrition, a person my size generally needs about 2,500 calories a day to sustain himself when training. I was eating, basically, for that fight, about 500 calories a day, which was just insane. I was eating once a day, training really hard, and on top of that, when I got to Las Vegas, I didn't take into account the desert heat. And once I got there, my whole body just dried out completely, and I was actually weighing 165. So I thought that was a good thing. I thought I was just, I was happy to make weight, but obviously I figured out that my whole body was just depleted of water, and that's why I dropped the weight so suddenly. In the last 8 days, all of a sudden it just all fell off. And so when I fought, I basically, my skin was devoid of water, and I cut. And for the first time in my career, not only did I cut, but I cut 3 times really bad. 2 over my eye and 1 under my eye. The one over my eye actually had required plastic surgery after the fight. And, so I spent a lot of the fight, with blood running in my eyes and the medicine running in my eyes. And Tim was a very good fighter. He threw a lot of punches, and he just kept me off balance, kept me from getting off first, and he beat me fair and square.
Mm-hmm. And Tim Littles was pretty good, though,
Yeah, no, I knew Tim from when we were amateurs. He was a world amateur champion. Mm-hmm. He was, at that time, he was a really hot guy in the super middleweight division.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought he was going to be a great champ one day. I really did.
Yeah, no, he had all the tools and everything. You know, whatever happened, I don't know. He, you know, he actually had Tony in a little bit of trouble there when they fought. You know, he was on the brink of a victory, and James turned out to be greater, you know.
Yeah, that was one of those fights that solidified James as great, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
And was that fight on the Holyfield Bow undercard?
Yeah, the first fight. Yeah,
wow.
we were actually the last fight before Holyfield and Bow.
Oh, that's cool, man. Like, what kind of atmosphere is that like, fighting on that?
Oh yeah, that was you know, it was crazy. I mean, after the fight, I mean, I was all cut up. I had, you know, lacerations on my face, and I didn't want to miss the fight, the Bow fight, and B, I just didn't want to leave the atmosphere. We didn't even have a ticket. That's how dirty it was. Like, they, you know, I could go into a whole thing about how they treated me, but we didn't even have tickets to the fight. We didn't have seats after the fight. So me and my trainer, we just walked all over the arena, just constantly moving, getting moved along by security. So I literally watched the Bow Holyfield fight from about 12 different angles, and you know, but it was an amazing fight. The atmosphere was like, the best way I describe it felt like Roman gladiator days.
Yeah.
That's what it was like. Like, the crowd was a big part of that fight. Really, really involved in the fight.
Yeah, those fights always felt special, you know, when you were about to see it. It just felt like some magic shit was happening. I don't know.
It was especially that 10th round when either the 9th or 10th when Holyfield made that huge comeback. That was bananas. That was out of control. And really, the thing was, I stayed late too because there were so many celebrities, and they have this like walkway in the back where they shuttle them all out and they all hang out back there. So me with my face all bloodied and you know, cut, and I was back there and I was hanging out with Jack Nicholson and Matt Johnson, and I actually had a long talk with Charles Dutton, the actor. He was real cool. Like, we talked for quite a while. He was a good guy. Martin Lawrence was back there. I mean, it was Rose Perez was there. It was Robert De Niro. It was pretty cool, you know. So I actually didn't go to the hospital for quite a while after the fight.
Yeah. And what did Martin Lawrence do? Did he joke about your cuts?
No, actually, to be honest with you, he was talking to, it was him, Charles Dutton, and the father on the show Rock. Remember the show Rock?
Yeah, Charles Dutton.
Yeah, Charles Dutton's father. His father on the show. And they were all talking, and I just remember I got a really bad vibe from the father and from Martin Lawrence. Like, they didn't seem to want to associate with me at all, while Charles Dutton was really cool. Like, he was actually talking to me, telling me about his prison days and how he got started as an actor. And the funny thing was, we got interrupted by a fan who wanted his autograph, so I said, oh, no problem, see you later. And he went and talked with the fan for a minute, then he came back to me and he said, oh yeah, so, you know, like I was saying, and he finished his story, which I thought was really, really cool, you know?
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's cool being Ice John that night, I guess.
Yeah.
It would have been better if you won, though.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you fought Tony Thornton at the Blue. What's it like fighting at the Blue?
You know what? In a lot of ways, I didn't get to experience it. I mean, I actually talk about this in my book, where Tony Thornton was probably the only fight that I went into where I honestly didn't care what happened. I took the fight. I mean, I didn't think I was actually going to be able to fight him, but because my cuts from the little fight were so bad that I had to have plastic surgery. And Teddy Atlas had seen me at a show in New York, and he told a mutual friend of ours that he didn't think I'd ever be able to fight again, that he thought my career was over. And so when the Thornton fight came up, you know, I said, you know what, it's an opportunity to fight on TV, to fight the Blue Horizon. I always wanted to fight Tony Thornton, but I went into the fight, and I just, you know, I was just having so much trouble with weight, and I just didn't care. Like, I had lost my spirit for boxing, and I, of course, my cuts opened up in the first round, all of them. Like, literally halfway through the first round, it was like I was in the 12th round of the Littles fight. And, you know, I still had my heart. I mean, I made it to 10 rounds. The referee at one point was going to stop the fight on cuts, and and I actually threatened his life. I told him I'd kill him after the fight if he stopped it. And he said, okay, son, relax. And I made it through. But after that fight, like literally, as soon as it was over, I retired. I stopped boxing right at that moment.
Yeah, how long did you take off then?
Let's see, that was March of '93, so I literally didn't do anything boxing-wise for about, I guess, 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I started to get an itch again, and I came back at the very end of the year and had a tune-up fight. And then I was actually in a groove. I actually felt refreshed, and it was like starting over. But the night of the Thornton fight, I just didn't care anything about boxing. I was done with it for good as far as I was concerned.
Yeah, I think you'd beat Tony Thornton. I can't see you.
I wanted to fight so bad. Just I felt like my style and that he would have been perfect for me. Like he was the perfect fight for me. But just circumstances, I just didn't care. I honestly just did not care.
Was there something going on in your life that made you feel that way, or did you just get sick of boxing?
I mean, basically it was the cuts. I mean, I just felt like I was having trouble with weight, and at the time I hadn't yet learned how to lose weight properly, so I didn't know what I was doing. I was just, heavy, and I couldn't lose the weight, and I was just killing myself. I was in a steam room every day. Like for that fight, I literally was in the steam room every day for 14 days in a row, right up to the weigh-in, including the day of the weigh-in. And I still barely made it. Matter of fact, I might not even have made it for that fight. I might have came over like a half pound and they let it go. So I just, what I had to go through to get ready for the fight made the fight totally unenjoyable. And I said, if this is what it's got to be, then I just don't even want to do this anymore.
Yeah. Who trained you for that fight?
At the time, I was with a guy by the name of Pepe Vasquez out of Hartford. He was an assistant trainer for Marlon Starling for several years, and he was a real good motivator and everything. But he also didn't know anything about nutrition and that type of thing. And it was just, I just wasn't ready for the fight.
Yeah. And you fought Michael Nunn. Bring me through that fight.
Wait, say that. I couldn't hear you. Say that again.
I said, bring me back to the Michael Nunn fight. That was a good fight. I remember that fight.
Right. Well, the difference between me against Michael Nunn and Tony Thornton was, in the meantime, I had learned about proper weight loss and how to do it. And like I say, when I fought Thornton in middles, I was eating 500 calories a day. I just wasn't eating anything. My body was literally not strong enough to run around the block. By the time I fought Nunn, I had learned, and I was eating 2,500, 3,000 calories a day. I was really strong. Like, I made weight, put it this way, training for Nunn, for middles and Thornton, I barely made 68. Like, I struggled with 68. Training for the Nunn fight, I had actually got down comfortably to 66 and was feeling great.
Yeah. Weight makes a difference, man.
Oh, no, physically and especially mentally, I mean, it makes a huge difference. And, I'm living proof for that. I mean, I was two different people. But if I went into the Nunn fight like I did against Thornton and Little, he would have murdered me. It would have been really one-sided.
Yeah. What would you make of Michael Nunn that night? Like, what's so difficult about Michael Nunn? What makes him so good?
Probably the biggest attribute I think he had was that he was one of the most relaxed boxers in the world. I put him right up there with Roy Jones and James Toney in terms of his ability to just relax in the ring. I mean, it was almost as if he was just walking across the street on a Sunday afternoon, really calm. And I learned a lot from him in terms of that. But I did fight a good fight. I landed more punches. Even though he threw a lot more, I actually landed more punches. I landed more power punches. I physically hurt him at least once that I know of. My connect percentage was much higher. I was very, very satisfied with my performance that day.
I think I watched that fight like 50 times. I remember the ring was blue.
Yeah, I've actually never watched it, to tell you the truth. But I know that the next morning, either on TV or the next morning in the lobby, I remember Al Bernstein saying that that if that John Scully would have fought his whole career like that I would have been undefeated at the time that I came to the fight with Nunn. And I believe that. I truly believe it. I know that for a fact. I believe it.
Yeah. I mean, if Al Bernstein says it, it must be true. You know?
Yeah. I mean, and it's just knowing what I went through for the losses and knowing how I felt for the Nunn fight. I mean, it was just a 90 day. It was two different people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You look totally different. You look great in the Nunn fight.
Thank you.
And then you went to Germany and fought Henry Maskey. What's it like going to Germany? What do the people treat you like there when you're there to fight?
It was a very good experience in that respect, but now, my career is like a real, just an amazing, odyssey. What had happened was, when I fought Nunn, my mother had gotten sick, and we didn't really know exactly what the situation was. But by the time the Maskey fight came around, we realized that she had actually had cancer, and the cancer had destroyed her spine, and she was paralyzed, and bedridden, and basically, I guess you stay on her deathbed. So my whole time training for that fight, for the Maskey fight, I was away from home, and I wasn't really. It's amazing because I was fighting for the world title against an elite champion, and it was just the timing of it. My mother was sick, and she wasn't going to last much longer. And as luck would have it, I mean, just the way my career has been, par for the course. The day I left for Germany from Florida for my training camp, after my run in the morning, I called home, which I did every day. And the police answered the phone the day I left. And they had just taken my mother to the emergency room. Something happened. She stopped breathing, or I forget exactly the situation, but they took her to the emergency room that day. So I actually was trying to decide, I mean, do I go home, don't go to Germany, what do I do, And, I talked it over with my father, and we decided that I should go to Germany. So, I went. I was literally on the plane to Germany, not knowing if my mother was dead, what the situation was. So, needless to say, my time in Germany was a little bit preoccupied. I'm good, thank you. My time in Germany I was very preoccupied, and that combined with the fact that I had just lost Nunn a few months earlier in a fight that I didn't get credit for anything. Like they made the score so wide that I kind of said to myself, if I can't get a decision, even a close fight with a guy with a star in my own state, how am I going to come over to Germany and beat their Ali? So I went to the fight just trying to fight, but I just had so much against me, and it was like trying to climb a mountain, and everyone's telling me, climb, keep climbing, you can do it, but deep down, I knew I couldn't do it. I just knew the timing wasn't right, and Maskey was good enough where I may never have been able to beat him.
You can't fight when your mom's sick like that anyway. I mean, it's like, what can you do when you're training, and it's like you can't even focus on it. Buster Douglas is like the only guy I ever heard of that can do that,
Right. Well, the thing is, his mother actually passed away already. So he trained with, vigor, whereas me, every day I was just wondering, am I going to call home tonight and she's going to be gone? I mean, do I have to live the rest of my life with the knowledge that I was here and not there? Was boxing more important than her? I mean, it was a really tough spot.
Yeah, it sucks, man. It sucks. So how long did she live after that?
Let's see, that fight was in May. She passed away in September.
Yeah. That's terrible, man. I feel bad about that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
How old was she?
What was she? 66.
No.
But the thing was, she was a lifelong smoker, and, so I imagine that didn't help her case.
Yeah. Then you fought Graziano Rakhajani in the next fight. What was that like?
That fight, I mean, to be honest with you, I thought it was a much closer fight, like the Nunn fight. I actually, after the fight, I felt like I wanted a rematch. I felt like I could beat him. If we fought, under, more fair circumstances, I felt like I could have beat him.
I fought him in Germany in a non-title fight, meaning that it was literally not just 3 German judges, but 3 local judges. It was just it was like him coming to Hartford for a 10-round fight. He would have had a judge from Bristol and a judge from Hartford and a judge from Windsor going against him. I thought that I fought a good fight. I thought I gave him a little bit too much respect. I expected probably a lot more from him. I kind of got fooled in a way. I just gave him probably too much credit. I thought my style matched up well with his, and that was one of those fights that I thought a rematch I could have beat him, but he beat me fair and square.
Mm-hmm. What about Drake Fatsy? How hard did he hit?
You know what? I honestly don't remember feeling anything bad. Forget about the Maskey fight, forget about the Storm fight, forget about Ellis fight. That fight was the worst experience of my entire life. Other than my mother dying, me being there for that was the worst. It was insane what I went through for that fight. I literally, the day of the fight, in the hotel, I was supposed to go over the arena about 7 o'clock. At 6:30, I was on my bed with my bags packed, ready to go home. And I was just sitting there, and I was just saying to myself, I got to go home. I got to drive. It was 2 hours to my house. I'm just going to drive home. This is crazy. I'm not ready for this fight. My weight is just terrible. I had lost tons of weight, including 8.5 pounds the last night. The day before the fight, I had to lose 8.5 pounds to make it. And I just, 2 hours before, not half an hour before I was set to report to the arena, I said to myself, I'm going to go home. This is crazy. I shouldn't be in a ring. This is stupid. I'm going to get killed tonight. And I just kept debating whether I should go home or not. And I went to the arena, and I just fought, and it was just terrible. I couldn't throw. It's not that I didn't throw punches. I just didn't want to throw punches. I didn't care. I almost wanted to get beat bad just so that I'd have a good enough reason to really stop boxing. I needed somebody there with me who knew fighters, and actually that fight shows me what a trainer I am now, because I'm there for my fighters. I wouldn't let any fighter go through what I went through. I wouldn't put them in a fight that night. But nobody around me could even notice that I was just miserable. And I went into the fight, and the only time in my life I got stopped, and I got stopped only because I wasn't punching back, not because I was getting hit. I could have fought, the way we fought, I could have fought 100 rounds at that pace and everything. It would have been easy. But I just wasn't there. He literally beat a dead man that night.
Did you feel like it was more physical, the change in your skills, or did you feel like it was like a physical thing or mental?
Oh, no, it was a mental. I mean, my mother passed away. I had already lost in a world title fight. I was getting older. I was having trouble making weight again. I guess that, I wasn't as dedicated, maybe, whatever. There's so many things. I just was burned out by boxing, I guess, and I just didn't want to fight. And, but I was always too stubborn to, ever since I was a kid, I was always that person. Like if I had an earache, a bad earache, which I used to get a lot when I was a kid, I would never cry. I would never tell anybody. I would just keep the pain to myself. I was the type, I never tried to look for help from my parents or anything like that. And so when I was going into the fight, I just figured I'll just go through it. I'll just face it. And where I needed someone with me to go, hey, are you in pain? What are you doing? Oh, you can't fight. That's it. But I didn't have that, and I was on my own, and I made I let my pride push me into doing what I was, what I promised I would do, and that's go through with the fight. And I paid for it. I mean, I just didn't have any spirit. I mean, I just didn't want to fight. It was just so, I just hated it. It was similar to the Tony Thorne. It was very similar to the Tony Thorne fight, in that I just have no desire to fight whatsoever.
And you decided to retire after that, not too long after. What?
No, I retired in the ring. I told Al Bernstein on the air. If you ever see the fight, I've never watched it, but I told Al Bernstein on the air, in front of the whole live TV audience, I said, I quit And I was so upset. I quit. And he goes, all right, so, you're going to retire? I said, no, I quit. And I think I even said, I hate boxing. I hate training for boxing. I hate losing weight. I just am sick of boxing. I don't want to fight anymore. And I meant it. I really actually meant it. And I went home that day I remember thinking to myself, I don't care if I never see another gym in my life. I don't think I ever go to a gym again. It's like when people love pizza. They love a pizza, but they one day they just have eaten so much of it and they say themselves, they have an upset stomach and they're like, I'm never going to have this pizza again as long as I live. And of course, a few days later when they feel better, they want some pizza again. But that night, and for quite a while afterwards, I meant that I did not want to box again. I didn't want to train. I didn't want to spar. I didn't want to do anything. And the indicative thing of it was I weighed 174 for that fight, and 2 days after the fight, I weighed 193. So that'll tell you what I went through.
Yeah. Tell me about some of the sparring matches you had. You sparred Mike McCallum. What was that like?
That was an amazing honor, and it was a great thing because it was totally unplanned. I was actually out in Las Vegas with a fighter who had a fight coming up, and I was in my hotel room, and I remember I was in the hotel eating an ice cream cup, and all of a sudden I got a phone call that Mike McCallum was over at Johnny Tacos, and his sparring partner didn't show up, and he needed sparring right away because he was leaving the next day for England to fight Michael Watson. And I remember I jumped up and I threw ice cream in the cup in the can, and I got a taxi. I went right over there and I jumped right in the ring, and it was just an honor. And I lived for moments like that to be able to spar with guys like that, especially at that time. I was really anxious, and he gave me a lot of compliments after. He said that he wished he had met me sooner, that he would have used me for sparring for the whole camp. So yeah, that was an honor. That was something special.
How about James Toney?
What's that?
How about James Toney, sparring James Toney?
James, it's a funny thing. James and I actually consider him now one of my best friends in boxing. Me and my buddy. But at the time, I had never met him, and I didn't, I didn't really care for him that much because of his attitude on TV and things like that. But when I got the offer to spar, I just wanted to spar him and see what it was like. And I went there, and we had really good work. And the funny thing was, I started hanging out with him at his house, and he was just totally different than everything I had built him up to be. Really cool guy. Like I said, that was next year. It'll be 20 years ago that happened, and we to this day we still talk on the phone. Good buddies. He's a real cool guy. But the sparring with him was just like the fights. I mean, he talked so much trash, and he got so nasty every day in sparring that I used to think that we were enemies, that I did something, and now we're enemies. I honestly thought, oh man, I guess we're not friends anymore. But then once I started talking trash back to him, he liked it. And I remember his friend, Jimmy, was like his right-hand man. He said, oh man, James loves that when you talk back to him. He respects that. And so we spent 5 weeks just basically talking trash back and forth every day, and it was exciting. It was great, but it was also a great learning experience. And it was actually the fight I sparred with him. When was it? It was what year was that? 90. Must have been August of '93. So that's actually what got me back into boxing. Like I was after the Thorne fight. I wasn't into boxing. I hated boxing at the time. But when I got an offer to go spar James, like instantly a switch was flipped, and I got right back into the mode. And sparring with him actually gave me the desire to come back and box again.
Well, that's cool. What about Roy Jones?
Roy, whatever I did in boxing, like I owe a lot to him, just because I always said sparring with him, I would have done it for nothing. Like getting paid to spar with him was just icing on the cake, because I honestly would have done it for free, because I just, he was the best. He was the best in the world, and sparring with him made me not worry about anybody else. And he went for none. And I think one reason why I went into the none fight so confident was because of all the sparring I had done with Roy and with James. And I said to myself, there's no one in the world that's going to be as dangerous and as fast and as sharp as Roy Jones. So there's nobody that can match up with this guy. So if I can hang with him for weeks at a time, then I can hang with anybody, and that's how I lived my life after that.
Yeah. How fast is he?
I mean, he's every bit as fast as you think he is. Especially when he wanted to be fast, when he wanted to show his speed. And but not just that, he was very smart fighter. He knew. I had a lot of moves myself. I have a lot of smart moves that I've used in my career on champions, and a lot of stuff that worked on other people didn't work on him. He knew all the tricks as I was trying, and he would catch on, and so he made me think. He made me think a lot more than I had to do with other guys.
Yeah. How sad do you get watching him fight now?
Yeah. You know what I'm sad about? I'm sad about very similar to Hector Camacho at the end of his career, where people that are 18, 16, 15, 20 years old watching him, they don't know what all the hype was about.
Mm-hmm.
They say, the guy wasn't that good. I mean, you guys are exaggerating, everybody should be forced to watch Macho Camacho in 1983. They should be forced to watch Roy Jones in 94, just to realize, who you're actually talking about here.
Yeah. 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 And what was Vinny Pazienza like?
Vinny, I love sparring with Vinny more than anybody I've ever sparred with in my life, and I've sparred with upwards of 1,000 different people. And Vinny sparred like he fought. Like we went to war. He was taught. I mean, if you could knock him out, knock him out. If he could knock you out, he'll knock you out. Like he went for the big shots, and he got lost in it. Like he was wrapped up in it. And I was the same way. So Vinny, if you want to have fun and go really get into a fight, you went and sparred Vinny Paz.
Mm-hmm. And, let's see, my computer's messing up on here. Hold on, Reese. It's almost over. Do you spar with Chad now?
I haven't sparred with Chad in several years. I mean, once I started training him, I actually have kind of a joke thing, but when we used to spar, the one thing that he, for me, was susceptible to was the jab. I have a pretty good jab, and he was doing this like technical mistake that was allowing me to catch him with the jab. And when I first started training him, I corrected that. And I told him, I said, you're not the guy that should be getting caught with the jab. You should take that away from people, and you should have the best jab in the world. And after I was teaching him that, and after he really started mastering it, I figured, man, now I've taken away my best attribute against him. So this at my age, this sparring might not be so much fun anymore. So we have a trainer. I need to watch him, as opposed to being in with him.
And getting a phone call. I don't know what's happening with my computer. Like it just keeps moving down by itself all the way down.
Yeah.
Who else you spar with? That we would.
I actually went back after we fought, and I sparred Henry Nasty for 3 weeks. And it was a funny thing. We, boxing is mental. It's a really mental game. And when I first went there, I had just lost to him in my previous fight, and his style was really, really difficult. And I was trying to be, just trying to do the best I could, just trying to work hard in the gym. And when I first started sparring with him, it was like the fight. It was hard to get through to him, and I kind of accepted that. I was just there for sparring. I had no fights coming up. But about halfway through the training, about two weeks into it, his trainer kind of insulted me one day. I don't know, he said something in German to somebody, and he kind of insulted me, and he just kind of had a way about him. I didn't really get along with him. And from that day on, I said, you know what, I'm not going to try and just work hard. I'm going to be me. I'm just going to fight like I fight, and whatever happens, happens. And I started boxing more of like what I call an American style. Like I started dropping my hands, and I started fainting, and I was really energized. In the last like 7 sparring sessions, I honestly can say I really got off. Like I really had some of the best sparring I've done in my life, and I know Henry was surprised, and the trainer, I would do certain things to Henry, and I would look over at the trainer, kind of like taunting him. And my friend who was with me, one of the sparring partners, he took me aside. He goes, "Man, you got to stop doing that, man. They're gonna end up taking us out in the woods and killing us one day. They're gonna leave us out here. You're being too cocky." But I really hit a groove, and it was only sparring. It wasn't a fight. It didn't count something, but I really felt like I made my point. I boxed well, at least on even terms, and Henry and I actually, after that, we got to be friendly, and I actually saw him in Germany last year when I was there for a fight, and we had a nice reunion. It was really good to see him.
That's cool. Does he speak English?
Not much. Just enough for me to communicate with him, but not to have a deep conversation.
Yeah. I always wonder why more American fighters don't want to go there. I could see he's not getting ripped off, but the atmosphere is so electric. I think I'd want to fight over.
Well, the atmosphere is great, but it's like whoever comes to fight is not, like they're there. The vibe is that you're a good fighter, but you're not gonna win. Like you're just here. You're just a face that's here. When I knew I was in trouble with Maskey, I knew, something was up. I remember I went into the mall next to the hotel to get something, whatever. And I remember there was a huge beach towel. Now, usually the beach towel has Mickey Mouse on it, or Wonder Woman, and Superman. And this beach towel, it was spread out, hanging from the roof, and it had Henry Maskey on it. And I remember when I saw that, I was like, "Man, how am I gonna beat this dude over here?" Like their stars are bigger than our stars. Yeah. Like everybody that's a big star there is a Tyson level star. Yeah. He's not just big like a Kelly Pavlik in Ohio and that type of thing. I mean, when you're Henry Maskey, every single person in the country of Germany knows who you are. Everybody. Mm-hmm. There's not one person there that doesn't know who you are and is not rooting for you.
You're right. You're right, man. And who's the trainers that you look up to the most that you try to pattern your training style after? To say the truth,
I've dealt with and been friends with a lot of trainers over the years. I actually have 3 that I kind of pattern myself. A mix of 3. I'll tell you what they are. One is Freddie Roach, and what I like about Freddie is I'll give you one example that will put it all in perspective for you. I was in Los Angeles before De La Hoya and Pacquiao fought, and a couple of weeks before the fight, I guess. And Pacquiao had just got done training, and they opened the gym, to talk to everybody else. He trained by himself, so he had just left. I actually passed Pacquiao on the way in, and he was coming out. So I go in the gym. Now, Freddie had just got done training the super champion for the multi-million-dollar fight, and I remember Freddie was sitting in a chair, and he was wrapping the hands of like a kid. The kid couldn't have been more than 10. Maybe 9, maybe 10 years old. He was wrapping the kid's hand, getting the kid ready to train. And I just saw that, and I said, you're not going to see that. The elite trainers working with the multi-millionaire fighters, 5 minutes later, they're not wrapping the hands of the 10-year-old kids getting ready to train them. So when I saw that, I knew I was on the right track, because that's kind of my style, was something I would do. The other guy is Dickie Eklund, who I remember years ago at my gym. He was in the gym with a fighter who had a big fight on ESPN coming up. And I remember after they were done training, after the kid was done sparring, Dickie took him in the back and was doing exercise with him. And I remember the kid kept quitting, and Dickie wouldn't quit. And Dickie was talking to him and laughing at him while they were doing the exercises. Dickie was telling him, "Come on, get your legs up. Come on, what are you, a baby? Put your legs up." And, Dickie had just come off, prison and drug rehab, and he was older, hadn't fought in 15 years as it was. And here he was, just a physical specimen wearing its fighter out. So when I saw that, I knew that was something I wanted to do when the time came, and that's me right now. And the other one is a guy by the name of Russ Amber, Anber, out of Montreal. He was a trainer for Otis Grant, Hercules Capello. He's worked with a lot of fighters, and he's like me in that, and I'm like him, I guess. He's a trainer. He's not the guy that just sits in a chair and tells you to hit the bag, tells you to run tomorrow. I mean, he from the time you come to the gym to the time you leave, he's right next to you. He's working with you. He's pointing things out. He's working on strategy. He's a hands-on trainer, the way you're supposed to be, and the way a lot of guys aren't. So I definitely pattern that. I'm that type of trainer. So I've kind of taken those three guys and molded them together to make myself.
Who are you training right now? Are you training Chad and anyone else, or are you just...
Right now I'm in camp. It's just me and Chad. I have a lot of amateurs back home that I'm training. We actually had a fight show just the day before I left for here. I was at a show in Connecticut. We have my amateur guys fighting. And I have a couple of, 4-round kids, up-and-coming fighters that I've been working with. But, Chad's obviously the priority, and my everyday amateurs, those are a priority for me.
And what's your relationship like with Chad? Real close relationship?
I think we have a great relationship. I mean, he's a fighter that, like last night, for example, after training, I went in the ring with him, and we just talked for about 10 minutes about training and about, the mental aspects of the game and what he needs to do. And he's probably one of, if not the most responsive fighter I've ever dealt with in terms of when I talk to him, he listens and he understands boxing, and he knows what I'm trying to do for him, and he wants to try it. He tries everything I tell him. He's what I call coachable. And the fact is, a lot of guys at his level aren't coachable, I don't think. I think a lot of guys figure they're making the trainer and they're already a champion, and they just need someone to make sure they get in good shape. But with Chad, I'm able to reach him and explain to him when he's doing something wrong and point out his mistakes. And he, as opposed to a lot of people, he likes that. He likes when you tell him when he's doing something wrong. So on that end, I can't complain about the training at all.
And how happy about where he's at right now are you?
The theme for this fight for the past couple of weeks has been, and I've actually put it up on Twitter a couple times, ahead of schedule. Going to the last fight, we were very confident, we were ready, and for this fight, it just feels like he's ahead of schedule, he's sharper, he's in much better shape, because when we started training for the first half of the fight, I was actually kind of caught off guard at how out of shape he was, how far down the ladder we were starting to climb from. This time, he came into camp much earlier, and as a result, he started off 10 times stronger. I mean, it was like nothing big. So he's basically not starting over for this fight. He's just picking up where he left off from the last one. So I expect him to be, I'm expecting the fight of his career.
And when you think about how the fight's going to play out, what do you imagine?
I mean, a lot of it depends on how Hopkins reacts to Chad, because I've always said Chad's like a Roy Jones and a Mayweather in that the opponent has to react to him much more than he has to react to them. So it depends on how Hopkins deals with Chad, because Chad, I think, is going to set the tone and the pace and the distance, and it's going to establish control a lot more visibly than Hopkins will. So once we get that big lead, like Jermaine Taylor and some of those guys, Pascal, Pascal let Hopkins out to a lead, and that was a mistake for him. I think once Chad gets the lead, it'll be the type of thing where you're running a 100-yard dash, and if you let Chad to the 80 and you're not even at the 50 yet,